Winning Blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
Welcome back. You are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me on this wonderful Friday afternoon. And oh man, it's bubbling. It's bubbling. It's Friday. I can see the finish line. It is almost Sunday. It is almost game time. And I feel like Michael Jackson right now in the Jackson 5. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? It is here. I just feel I can't wait, man. I'm ready to go. And this episode today is going to be dedicated solely to going over these games. Again, I'm 0-1. I started the season with a loss. I picked the Giants to beat the Cowboys 24-20. They lost the game 24-17. And so I'm 0-1. The lab is 0-1, and we have to rectify this situation because that's not who I am. And so I'm going to go over these games this weekend, the other 15 games, all Sunday and Monday. And we're going to go through them one by one, analyze it, dissect the game, and then I'm going to give you a winner. And I'm going to tell you why. And we're going to go Cowboys game aside. We're going to go 13-2 this week. That's a really lofty goal. But if anybody can do it, why not me? Okay? So we start off our venture through the NFL slate this weekend with the Indianapolis Colts, who travel to Chicago to take on the Bears. And this marks the initial start, the inaugural start for Andrew Luck in the National Football League. He'll be taking on a tough Bears defense that's looking to do big things this year. And so I think Andrew Luck has shown in the preseason that he can make plays. He can flat out get it done in this league. And you're going to see a lot of that on display this season. However, this is the first game. The Bears play a lot of cover two. They're going to keep everything in front of them. I think they're going to force Andrew Luck into a few throws in tight spaces. And trust me, he can make these throws. But I think they're going to force him into a few throws that maybe he wish he had back. They're going to get pressure on him. This Colts team is not very talented at all. And so Andrew Luck has to do what he can with the pieces that they have around him. And I tell you what, this game right here is going to be not a disaster, but it's not going to be close in the long run. I expect the Bears to handily and decisively take care of the Indianapolis Colts. Brian Urlacher fully practiced on Wednesday, did not practice on Thursday, but if he can practice Wednesday, I feel like he'll be a go on Sunday. And so they'll have all their pieces on the defensive side of the football. This offense, the Bears offense we're talking about, can be one of the most explosive in the league if Jay Cutler can stay healthy and make smart decisions with the football. New offensive coordinator Mike Tice, I think he has the pieces on this team, on this roster, to get it done. You're talking about Brandon Marshall, Devin Hester. You look at Earl Bennett, of course. They drafted Alshon Jeffrey. We're not even mentioning Matt Forte, who's Mr. Do-It-All. They have weapons on the offensive side of the football to flat out get it done. And so I'm going to tell you what, if this offensive line for the Chicago Bears can be steady throughout the course of the season, they're going to be fine. And this Colts defense, I think doesn't present that big of a challenge for this Bears offensive line because they're starting a new defense. Chuck Pagano, new Indianapolis Colts head coach, coming in, implementing the 3-4 defense, and they don't have the parts for it right now. They just don't have the pieces for a 3-4 defense right now. They still have 4-3 personnel, and so they're playing a 3-4 with 4-3 personnel. They don't have the pieces to get pressure on the quarterback right now. And so I think Cutler will have time to survey the field, find open receivers, make plays. Forte is going to have a few running lanes. If you watch the Colts in the third preseason game against the Redskins, they were gashed in the run game. I don't see that changing. I see the Bears handily taking care of the Indianapolis Colts 27-13 to take the Bears record to 1-0 and drop the Colts to 0-1 for the season. As you move on to the next game, you have the Atlanta Falcons and their fringe explosive offense traveling out to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. And if you're the Falcons and you're the fans and the organization, you're asking the schedulers, what do I have to do to start the season at home? The last 2 seasons, the Falcons have started on the road and they have started miserably. If you can remember as far back as the 2010 season, they started on the road in Pittsburgh. No Ben Roethlisberger. They played against Dennis Dixon, and they couldn't beat Dennis Dixon. They lost to the Steelers in overtime on a Rashard Mendenhall run, game-winning touchdown run. The next season, the 2011 season, they go on the road to Chicago, and they get drubbed by the Bears, like something like 30-12. It wasn't even close. The Bears jumped on them early and often. And the Falcons are not a team that starts the season fast. I don't know what it is about them. Maybe they just need a home game to get them started. Whatever the case may be, again, they find themselves on the road, traveling to a tough place to play football in Arrowhead Stadium to take on the Chiefs. This is a team that essentially won their head coach his job last year. Interim head coach Romeo Crennel last year took over for the fired Todd Haley, and they beat the Packers, the only team to do so in the regular season, and they played some inspired football down the stretch, and they basically got Romeo Crennel hired full-time as the Kansas City Chiefs head coach. He has this defense playing good football. This is a solid defensive football team. Now, they lost Brandon Carr in free agency to the Cowboys. So this secondary is a little bit revamped. Again, Eric Berry is returning from injury. He got injured first game of the season last year against Buffalo. So it's his first NFL action essentially in a calendar year. And so how is he going to look? Early on, I expect jitters out of him. Yeah, he's played in a few preseason games in the offseason, but nothing can compare to playing in the regular season. And so I expect Eric Berry to be a little nervous out there. But look, this secondary is going to be okay. They went out and got Stanford Route. This secondary and this defense is a solid group that limits teams to under 20 points often. They play good defense. They play sound defense. The only thing that I wonder is, will they be able to get consistent pressure without Tamba Hali in the lineup, who is suspended for his PED usage? And so that's going to be the question mark for me. With Tamba Hali, I would feel confident about taking the Chiefs here. I'm a little skittish on this one, but this is my upset pick of the week. Most people think the Falcons are poised to have a big season, and I wouldn't be one to disagree with you. I think they're going to have a solid season. I don't know if they'll do enough to overtake the Saints in that division, but this is what the Falcons do. They start off the season slow on the road, and I don't think 2012 season is any different. That is why I have the Kansas City Chiefs beating the Atlanta Falcons 19-17 in Arrowhead in a nail-biter. So I have the Chiefs going to 1-0 and the Falcons reluctantly dropping to 0-1. So we move on. And our next game takes us out to Cleveland, where the Browns will host the Philadelphia Eagles. And this is a young Cleveland Browns football team. New quarterback Brandon Weeden will head a Cleveland Browns offensive attack that you're looking at, and there might not be any players along that skill group that has more than 4 years of NFL experience. Weeden's a rookie. Trent Richardson, your opening day starting running back. They hope who will play. I don't see why he wouldn't. Coming off of that knee scope, he's going to be rusty. Hasn't really worked a lot, but again, this is the opening game for the Browns. I expect Trent Richardson to suit up and give it a go for the Browns. He's a rookie. You look out wide, and you're talking about Muhammad Massaquoi, who's probably in his 4th season in the league. You look across from him, and you have one of last year's early round draft selections in Greg Little, and behind him you've got guys like Josh Gordon, who the Browns took in the supplemental draft this season. And so a lot of young parts on that Cleveland Browns offense, a lot of growing to do. And so a lot of mistakes are going to be made on the offensive side of the football. You flip to the other side of the coin, and their defense is a defense that is relatively young as well. And so this is a team that's in a rebuilding stage, and they're looking to start from the bottom and work their way up. And they have a long way to go. And so when you're trying to rebuild, the last thing you want to do is see a team like the Philadelphia Eagles coming to town. This is a veteran group with a lot of skilled players that can flat out play football in the National Football League and make opponents look bad in the process. LaShawn McCoy, again, to me, one of the most elusive and explosive backs in all of football right now. He scares me. He's dangerous. You have Michael Vick, still one of the most dangerous trigger men in all of the National Football League, running the offense. You've got Deshaun Jackson. You've got Jeremy Maclin. They've got weapons all over the football field. They're an explosive group. They can put up points in bunches. And an Andy Reid coach team, if nothing else, is going to be potent on offense. They're going to score points. And that's what I expect the Philadelphia Eagles to do against the Cleveland Browns on the road. I expect the Eagles to start this game slow. But in the end, the Browns will be no match for the explosiveness of the Eagles offense as the Eagles take this one 31-13, taking their record to 1-0 and taking the Browns down to 0-1. Next up on the slate, we travel to Detroit, where the Lions will take on the St. Louis Rams. And this is a new St. Louis Rams team headed by head coach Jeff Fisher. Now he's looking to come in, change the culture of the Rams, which has been a losing one for the last 5 to 6 years. And he's looking to come in and change the culture and show these guys how to win consistently. And the first thing he must do is get this offense on track. Something that the Rams weren't able to do last year, as they were the most sacked team in the league. Their quarterbacks found the ground often last year, and a lot of times they found the ground with the ball still in their hands. And so that offensive line has to protect. Jeff Fisher has to get the most out of Steven Jackson, keep him healthy, keep running lanes available for him, get this offense to run like a well-oiled machine instead of a old jalopy like it did last year. And so Jeff Fisher has his work cut out for him. They have a long way to go in St. Louis. And again, when you're a team looking to rebuild, looking to start over and work your way up. You don't want to see an explosive offense in front of you like the Detroit Lions. They have the most physically imposing, athletically freakish receiver in the league that I've ever seen, period, in Megatron. Heavens to Megatron! And Calvin Johnson, a.k.a. Megatron. This is a beast. Flat out, plain and simple, no other way to say it. With Matthew Stafford getting him the football, this can be one of the better tandems in the league in terms of quarterback and receiver. They make beautiful music together because Matthew Stafford understands the law of Megatron, which means just throw it in his direction. I don't care if he's double covered, even triple covered. Just throw it high and in his direction and let Calvin Johnson do the rest. It works. Once you get teams focused in on Megatron, that's when you start spreading the ball around to Titus Young, Brandon Pettigrew, Nate Burleson, and a lot of these other guys. That's when they start getting involved and this offense becomes explosive. And so the Rams, it's going to be another long season, and it starts on Sunday in Detroit against the Lions. I have the Lions beating up on the Rams 34-16, and this one's not even going to be close. I think the Lions are going to jump on them early, establish themselves as the dominant team, and have the Rams saying to themselves early in the second quarter, here we go again. So that takes us to our next tilt, which finds us in Tennessee, where the Titans welcome the New England Patriots to town. And one of the more surprising and developing stories of the preseason was the struggles of the New England Patriots. They did not look like a sharp football team this preseason. And Bill Belichick made it a point to play his starters almost a full 3 quarters in that third preseason game against the Bucs because they looked bad. They didn't protect Tom Brady. He held on to the ball too long. They didn't look fluid as an offense. And they struggled a bit. And I'm not sure if they're ready to start the season full throttle, gas, and foot to the pedal. I don't know if they're going to come out and be the Patriots team that we've come to know and hate for the last 5 to 7 years, where they just come out and they're scoring 38 points in the first week of the season. I don't think that's what they're going to do now. They're going to gradually build themselves back up into that juggernaut of a team. With Tom Brady at quarterback, you know it's only a matter of time before they get this thing back to where it normally is, and guys like Brandon Lloyd assimilate themselves into the offense, and this thing starts to click on all cylinders. But I don't think it's going to happen in week 1. However, they're playing the Tennessee Titans, who have issues of their own. Jake Locker, who the Titans decided to make their starting quarterback this season, is essentially, for all intents and purposes, a rookie. Yeah, he played a bit last year, but it wasn't his team yet. It was still Matt Hasselbeck's team. They've given him the keys now. It's his car. He can do with it what he likes. And I feel like he wasn't ready yet. He's still young. He's still wet behind the ears. And I think that he's going to crash this car multiple times this year, including game number 1. The Titans still have one of the most explosive and premier bats in this league in Chris Johnson, and I expect him to have a bounce-back season this year. And can he run on the Patriots' defense? That will be the difference in this game, because you can't count on Jake Locker's arm quite yet to take you to a victory. And so Chris Johnson in that running game is going to be the difference in whether the Titans can win, or are they going to fall prey to these New England Patriots. I just can't see Chris Johnson being able to shoulder the load against a team like the Patriots, who's going to throw the football as much as they do and are going to try to score points. And the Patriots do a great job of putting points on the board and ending drives in touchdowns. And so I think it's just going to be too much for the Titans to overcome initially in their opening game, in their opening home game of the season. And so I have the Patriots beating the Tennessee Titans 27-17 on the road to take them to 1-0 and notch their first victory of the season and drop down the Titans to 0-1 as they look to find themselves in the Jake Locker era. And we move on to maybe one of the most evenly matched games of the weekend. In Minnesota, the Vikings will host the Jacksonville Jaguars, who, to me, are in the same type of a mode as the Minnesota Vikings are. Both are starting second-year quarterbacks who are looking to grow within their offense. Jacksonville having a new coordinator come in, looking to simplify things for their quarterback, Blaine Gabbert, and the Vikings looking to help Christian Ponder find his way, because you see the talent, you've seen flashes, but you haven't seen the full product on display yet if you're a Vikings fan. And so both of these teams need a running game in the worst way. Both of these teams have star running backs. Both of these teams have star running backs who haven't played in the preseason. One for injuries, being the Vikings' Adrian Peterson, and the Jacksonville Jaguars, Maurice Jones-Drew, who didn't play because of a holdout for a contractual situation. And so these are two teams that need the running game to help augment the passing game. Without the running game, there is no passing game for both of these teams. And so both of these teams have okay defenses. The Vikings are a little bit more on the shoddy side, whereas the Jaguars were a solid defensive unit last year. But both of these offenses leave a lot left to be desired. And so this is probably the most evenly matched game of the week. There's no dominant team in this game, no dominant player for either side, because Adrian Peterson is coming off an injury and Maurice Jones-Drew is coming off of a contractual dispute. And so none of their key guys are ready to burst onto the scene and take over the football game. So this is an evenly matched game. And normally, the way I do it in evenly matched games, if neither team is the aggressor, I just go with the home team. And so that's what I did here. I give the edge to the Minnesota Vikings because they're home. And so I had the Vikings in a squeaker, 20-16 over the Jacksonville Jaguars, which will take the Vikings to 1-0 and will drop the Jacksonville Jaguars to 0-1 on the 2012 season. And so we move forward. Our next game sees the Buffalo Bills get on the bus and take the trip over to New Jersey to East Rutherford to take on the New York Jets, their divisional foe. And so this is an interesting game because these two teams always play each other tough. And normally it's a very sloppy game, a lot of turnovers. And the team who doesn't turn the ball over last normally wins this game between the Jets and the Bills. And I see this game being no different than the past few Buffalo Bill, New York Jet games. I see a lot of mistakes in this game, and the team making the least amount of them will come out on top. And I believe that team to be the Jets. And I'll tell you why. I've watched the Bills throughout this preseason, and I feel like there are a lot of question marks with this Buffalo Bills team. Yes, you went out and you spent a lot of money in your front seven, primarily on that front four, along that defensive line. You went out and got Super Mario Williams, paid him almost $1 million. $100 million. You went out and got Mark Anderson, and you paid him some money to go after the quarterback. These are two guys that you're looking to start at the defensive end positions and get pressure on the quarterback. But I didn't see it in the preseason. I didn't see it. Marcel Darius, Kyle Williams along that defensive line, you're thinking this might be one of the most potent front fours in all of football. But I just didn't see the production that I was looking for. Again, it's the preseason, and so everything is taken with a grain of salt. However, I didn't see what I was looking for out of that front four. And so there's questions in that secondary. They have a good safety tandem back there with Wilson and Jarius Byrd. And so you don't worry about them. But then you look at the corners. And I love Stephon Gilmore, but he's a young rookie corner. Across from him, you have their second-round pick a year ago in Aaron Williams. And so these are young corners. And again, in the NFL, if you're not elite and you're a young corner and you're starting, that can spell trouble for your team. And I just don't know. I have to see more from these corners. Again, I love Stephon Gilmore's skill set. I love his size, his attributes, and everything he brings to the table. But it has to translate to the field in the NFL. And so, again, I have to see it. And I just don't know if these guys can be relied on time in and time out. Time again to help this Bills defense progress the way that they want to with the amount of money that they spent. And you look at their offensive side of the football, and at times this Bills offense looked unstoppable last year. With Fred Jackson playing the way he was before the injury, before Fitzpatrick got injured, they were scoring points at will on opposing defenses last year. Stevie Johnson is their number one receiver. They paid him. He's now in the fold. But who's across from him? I don't know any of the rest of their receivers. They drafted T.J. Graham, but I don't think he's a starting receiver. I think he's a slot guy in this league. He has speed to burn, and I think they want to have him burn that in the slot. I'm not sold on Donald Jones and the rest of these guys that they have at the receiver position. I'm just not. And so I don't see the Bills being able to do anything different than the Jets have seen in the past years out of this offense. The Jets, meanwhile, look to be back to dominant form on the defensive side of football. Rex Ryan loves to play an aggressive brand of defense, and the way he likes to do that is with his safeties. If LaRon Landry can remain healthy, him and Jeremiah Bell in that secondary at safety will be a breath of fresh air for the Jets. Remember, when the Jets were the number one defense in the league, they were playing good football with Jim Leonard back there quarterbacking that safety group back there, and they were able to be blitz happy and blitz crazed because of the corners and because of the production of the safeties. If Jeremiah Bell and LaRon Landry can continue to play as good as they have in the preseason, have these corners continue to stand up and be one of the better tandems at cornerback in the league, Rex is going to be busy, and he's going to blitz, and he's going to be blitz happy, and he's going to put pressure on opposing offenses and force them into mistakes. And I think that's what they're going to do to the Bills, keep this a low-scoring affair, because, again, the Jets did not score an offensive touchdown in the preseason until the last preseason game, and it was when, the second and third stringers were in the game. It wasn't with their first-team offense, and so they need to instill confidence in this first-team offense that they can put points on the board. And I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair, and I think the Jets are going to hold the Bills and that offense down and do just enough to win the game 19-13 as the Jets go to 1-0 and the Bills fall to 0-1. Next, our trip takes us out to Houston, where the Texans will welcome the Miami Dolphins to town. And I'm going to tell you what, if you watched Hard Knocks, you've seen that this Miami Dolphins team has a long way to go before they put fear into anyone's heart. And so this Texan team is ready and primed to make a run. There's no challenger currently to their throne in the AFC South as it stands right now. And so if they just play football and are the explosive offense that they've been for the last 4 years, And if they continue to run the football at the rate that they did last year and the year before that, and if Wade Phillips can continue to help this defense grow, they went from the 31st, 30th ranked pass defense to third in all of football last year. That's a huge jump. If Wade Phillips can keep this defense hungry, keep them coming after the quarterback as they did last year, force teams into turnovers, and continue to have this Texans defense playing at the level that they played at last year, this is a dangerous team in the AFC. Translation, the Dolphins have absolutely no shot of winning this ball game on Sunday. I expect the Texans to run the football, run it effectively with Arian Foster. He did miss practice yesterday. It was precautionary. Again, they have to keep Arian Foster healthy. But they have a 1-2 punch back there with Arian Foster and Ben Tate. And so either way, the Dolphins are going to get the ball ran on them. And off of that run, they'll see play action fake. They'll see Andre Johnson and a lot of these newer receivers, Keyshawn Martin, going down the field, stretching the field, and looking to make big plays. I don't see this game being as close as the final score might indicate. But again, I see the Texans ringing up 33 points on the Dolphins as they take this one 33-16. Again, I'm saying that's a close game. That's a 2-touchdown game, or 17 points, excuse me. But I don't even see it really being that close. I see the Texans jumping out to a commanding lead and not looking back, and the Dolphins scoring maybe some late game garbage time points to make it look somewhat respectable. But I look to see the Texans take it to the Dolphins early and often and breeze to an early season victory to take their record to 1-0 and drop the Dolphins down to 0-1. As we make our way out west, we find the Seattle Seahawks flying out to the land of the desert and the land of the sun to Arizona to take on the Cardinals, in which should be an interesting game. Two teams who had quarterback controversies in the preseason, who didn't really make their decision on a quarterback until after the third preseason game, essentially. And so these are two teams that are looking to find a quarterback that can establish themselves as the leader of the team. They're taking two very different routes to get to the quarterback of their choice. The Seahawks are looking to a rookie, a third-round selection in Russell Wilson, the quarterback out of Wisconsin, who by many accounts was too small to play quarterback in the National Football League. And everyone who's come in contact with this young man has said from the beginning that he has all the intangibles that you look for in a starting quarterback in the National Football League. The only thing holding him back, and that was a question, was his size. Well, he's put all of that to rest in the preseason with his play. And again, where he was drafted was perfect for his situation, because if any team in the league, if any coach in the league was going to give him a fair shot, it was going to be Pete Carroll in the Seattle Seahawks. Pete Carroll is the type of coach who doesn't care what your circumstances are. If you can help his ball club, he's going to give you a shot. Hence, you saw that with Terrell Owens and Braylon Edwards. So, with that being said, the Seattle Seahawks are an interesting team because you don't know what you're going to get out of them. They're one of those week one teams that you have to pay close attention to, because you don't know what you're going to get in form of a product on the field for the Seattle Seahawks, because they have a lot of pieces that are moving right now. They're a very fluid team right now. You don't know what you're getting. Marshawn Lynch, many expected him to get suspended. Looks like he's going to avoid that, but he's battling back spasms. So you might have to turn to Robert Turbin at the running back position. Your leading receiver from a year ago, Doug Baldwin, has been injured. You went out and got Sidney Rice. He's been injured. So you don't know if these guys, Sidney has been cleared to play. He played in the preseason a small bit. And so you don't know what you're getting out of these guys. Braylon Edwards has come in and he's looked good in the preseason. Look for him to play. So there's a lot of moving parts on that Seattle offense. Defensively, this team is ready to go. And quietly, out west, Seattle is putting together a solid defense that is looking to be a top-notch defense. They get after the quarterback. They force turnovers. They had 20 interceptions last year, and 2 of their 4 defensive back field players went to the Pro Bowl. And so this group, and actually, let me correct myself. 3 out of the 4 went to the Pro Bowl. 2 safeties and a corner. Brandon Browner being the corner and the safeties being Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor. And so they have playmakers on that defense. And that defense is primed and ready to be elite defense. They have to take the next step. They have to do the things that elite defenses do, like get pressure on the quarterback, like force turnovers, like stop teams from scoring points. You flip that over to the opposite side of the field to the Arizona Cardinals, and their quarterback situation is similar, but it's unsimilar in the same token because, like the Seattle Seahawks, this team didn't know who their quarterback was going to be coming into the preseason, into training camp. They didn't have a rookie to look at to see if they wanted to start. They have a rookie in camp on their team in Ryan Lindley, but he's not ready to start. Their quarterback competition was between 2 veterans, or 2 guys, I guess you can call veterans, in the form of Kevin Kolb and John Skelton. And John Skelton was the better of the 2 quarterbacks last year. He won the most games, but Kevin Kolb was being paid the most money. He was being paid starters money to come in and solidify the quarterback position, and he didn't do it. He couldn't stay healthy. He didn't make good decisions with the football, and that continued from last year into this year. And so neither one of these quarterbacks really took the reins by the horns and said, hey, I'm the starting quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals. And so John Skelton was given the job by default. He won the most games. He was most impressive last year. And I think by virtue of that, the team trusts him more to go out and get it done. He won in some hostile environments last year. He beat the Eagles on the road. He won some games against some good competition. And so they trust Skelton more than they trust Kevin Kolb, and for good reason. I thought that was the better move, to go with John Skelton. All in all, the Cardinals are a dangerous team at home. I don't think people realize how hard it is to go into University of Phoenix Stadium and come out with a win. Ask the Cowboys. They routinely go in there each and every year and come out with a loss. It's hard. The Giants barely escaped by the skin of their teeth last year. It's hard to go into the University of Phoenix Stadium and come out with a W. And I think the Seattle Seahawks are going to find that out this weekend as they go into Arizona and fall short 20-23. The Cardinals will get this victory, and I look for Patrick Peterson at some point in this game to make a difference. He may not return one for a touchdown, but he may bust one and put them in a position to score points. He is a dangerous returner, one of the most dangerous we have in the league. And I think John Skelton understands that he needs to get the ball to Larry Fitzgerald. I don't think Cobb realizes that enough. I think Skelton does. And I think that'll make all the difference as the Cardinals get on the board in the win column, 23-20, take their record to 1-0, and the Seattle Seahawks will fall to 0-1 in that division. It's about time we've had this in the NFC. Two teams that are expected to be good, battling for supremacy in the NFC, going head to head in the opening game of the season. It doesn't get much better than this. This is your marquee matchup in week 1. Yes, I'm talking about the San Francisco 49ers traveling to Green Bay to play the Packers at Lambeau Field in week 1. Doesn't get much better than this. Elite offense against elite defense. See which one comes out on top. The NFC has missed good teams playing each other of late. Last year, the week 1 marquee matchup was the best that the NFC had to offer in my mind in terms of teams, with the Packers and the Saints going head to head, with the Packers barely edging out the Saints in a thriller last year on that Thursday night season opening game. And so this year we get another excellent game at Lambeau Field in Green Bay with the Packers, and this time their counterparts will be the San Francisco 49ers. I look for this game to be awesome. I can't wait to watch. And I thought that Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers did not look up to speed with their offense. And I think they picked up right where they left off in the playoffs. They looked out of sync in the preseason. Greg Jennings was injured. Aaron Rodgers missed some throws that he normally could throw and make in his sleep. And I thought they looked a little rusty. You saw it in the Bengals game. Rodgers had to take it and pull it down and run for a couple scores just because he couldn't find receivers. He went through his progressions and he couldn't find guys. And I think that this offense will have to make strides to get back to where they were last year, where they were the most dominant team in all of football, and they're looking to get back to that. And the 49ers will have something to say about that with their defense. I watched them in the preseason, was not overly impressed. Again, it's the preseason. Take everything you see with a grain of salt. And so Peyton Manning carved them up in that preseason game, that third preseason game. And so I'm not overly impressed, but again, this is a good, borderline great San Francisco 49ers defense. Can't give them the great title because they give up too many big plays. They gave up 12 big plays of over 40 yards in the passing game last year. Great defenses don't do that. And so can't give them the great title yet, but they're as good as it gets on the defensive side of the football in the National Football League. From a lot of different standpoints. And so this is going to be a great matchup. Again, when the game is so evenly matched, the 49ers have a lot of weapons on offense. How are you going to use all of them? I still have my doubts about Alex Smith. I felt like they babysat him in that offense last year. You know, hitch, slant, out, everything was short. I won't even call it intermediate because to classify as intermediate, you need to be at least 7 to 10 yards. He wasn't even throwing those routes. A lot of his passes were 5 yards, stops, outs, ends, comebacks, and so slants. Everything was to keep the chains moving. Everything was a down and distance type of a play call for him, and that was fine. That's exactly what Alex Smith needed in that portion of his career where he was last year. Now that he has confidence that he can play, he needs to take the next step. They need to give him more. He needs to push the ball down the field more. This Packers defense was not great last year. They made a lot of subtle changes on their defense, drafting Nick Perry to be opposite Clay Matthews at outside linebacker. They moved Charles Woodson to safety. They brought in some more corners. They moved corners up. And so they're looking to have a bounce-back season. The Packers were dead last in defense last year, mainly because their pass defense was putrid last year. Horrendous. Any other adjective you can use to describe bad, that's what the Packers' pass defense was. But all that said, that Packers defense is an opportunistic defense that gets turnovers, turns the ball over, uses those turnovers to score touchdowns, whether they do it themselves or they give it to Aaron Rodgers, who deposits it in for 7. Either way, this Packers team gets turnovers, gets points on the board, and thus, in a great classic for Week 1 of the 2012 season, I have the Packers defeating the San Francisco 49ers 24-20. This is going to be a thrilling, exciting game, and it's going to be what you're looking for throughout the course of this season. Games like this one, and I'm going to enjoy it thoroughly, and let's hope it lives up to the hype that I'm giving it at this moment. I think it will. We'll see. Again, Packers 24, 49ers 20. The Packers will go on to 1-0, and the San Francisco 49ers, for one of the few times in this season, if not the only time, will drop to sub 500 at 0-1. Our next game takes us out to nice, warm, sunny Florida, where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers reside, and they'll be waiting on the Carolina Panthers, a divisional opponent who beat up on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. They had fun at the Buccaneers' expense. Cam Newton had a field day against these Buccaneers last year, and the Panthers were the feel-good story of last year. Now, it only amounted to 6 wins, but when you won only 2 games the previous season, 6 is a huge step in the right direction, and a lot of that had to do with the emergence of Cam Newton at quarterback, and he was phenomenal last year. He was better than phenomenal. He was spectacular. He was one of a kind. He was unlike anything we've ever seen in the NFL from a rookie quarterback, and he's looking to build upon that. The only thing I worry about this year is that dreaded sophomore slump. I think a lot of people are picking the Panthers to make noise in the NFC South this year. I know the Panthers believe in themselves, as center Ryan Khalil has already come out and said that they're going to the Super Bowl if the fans support them. They're going to be rewarded with silver, meaning the Lombardi Trophy. And so they have high expectations for themselves. And as a team, you should. If you don't believe that you're going to win, no one else will. And so they have high expectations, and thus I think the expectations outside of their locker room are that much higher for them as well because of the season and the impact that Cam Newton had on that franchise. And so I don't know if they can live up to that hype. I really don't. It's a lot to ask of a young team full of guys who are just trying to find their way in the NFL. However, that's big picture. On Sunday, the Panthers, who had these Buccaneers number last year, will look to continue that trend. They're going up against a new Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, revitalized by their head coach, Greg Schiano, who they plucked from the college ranks at Rutgers to come in and be their head coach. And they needed this. They needed someone to come in with a disciplinary approach. Thought the Buccaneers lost their way last year and essentially gave up on Raheem Morris as he was a player's coach. And I thought he cut them too much slack to the point where they just thought they could do whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted. And it showed on the field. And this is a team that is going to look to run the football first and foremost. They went out and drafted Doug Martin. They came and they already had LeGarrette Blount. They want Josh Freeman to bounce back from a down year last year, come back and play football. They went out and spent money in free agency, acquiring guard, all-pro guard, Carl Nicks, big play, big physical receiver, Vincent Jackson from the San Diego Chargers. And they're looking to make this offense a much more productive offense that can score points. They couldn't score points last year. They were terrible on offense. And they were even worse on defense last year. They gave up the most touchdowns on defense last year. 61 to be exact. And so this defense has to get it together. This offense has to be better. They have a long way to go. But they need to start taking baby steps. And the way you do that is you gain confidence by winning ball games, being in ball games, learning how to win. The only problem is that doesn't start this Sunday. Steve Smith has practiced all week. John Beeson has practiced all week. The only person in question as to whether they will play or not is Jonathan Stewart, the other head of that double-headed running attack between him and Mr. D'Angelo Williams. And so if double trouble is in full effect with D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart, Steve Smith is going to play. John Beeson is going to play. The Panthers are going to be too much for these Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think that Cam Newton and his explosiveness and his willingness to make plays will be too much for this Buccaneers defense to be able to withstand. And so I look for the Panthers to come out on top 27-17 as the Bucs fall to 0-1 and the Panthers grab their first win overall at 1-0 and get their first win in the division in the NFC South at 1-0. Don't you just love having meaningful Sunday night football? Isn't that great? Isn't that grand? It's a welcome sight to see Peyton Manning back in the National Football League. Love him, hate him, think he's on the TV too much, overhyped, whatever. Peyton Manning is a joy to watch play the quarterback position. And his presence back, not only in the National Football League, but in Denver, is a nice breath of fresh air. It makes the Denver Broncos relevant. It makes a team in that AFC West relevant. And it gives the NFL another team to look out for. Someone new on the NFL landscape. The Denver Broncos haven't really been relevant since the John Elway days. You could argue when Mike Shanahan had the Jake Plummer-led Broncos in the AFC Championship game, they were relevant. But whoever thought that they were good enough to win the Super Bowl? Really? I didn't. Anyway, we move back into the Steelers traveling to Mile High Stadium to take on the Denver Broncos. And I always feel bad when the Steelers have to travel to Mile High, because when they do, that means they will be without the services of safety Ryan Clark. Now, you asked me why I mentioned this right off the bat, and I tell you to look no further than the wild card weekend game last year between these Denver Broncos and these Pittsburgh Steelers that occurred in the first round of the playoffs last year. And I tell you that Ryan Clark was the difference in that game. Him not being able to play was the difference between the Steelers making plays in the secondary and Ike Taylor thinking he had help on a play with play action fake and realizing that the safety in the game was not where he was supposed to be and led to him getting beat on an 80-yard touchdown pass the first play of overtime. These Steelers lost the game because Ryan Clark was not out there helping quarterback that defense. And I firmly believe that. And again, these Steelers will be without his services because of that altitude and because of his condition that he has and he can't play. So these Steelers are already one man short, one pivotal man short. And so they're behind the 8 ball to start out. You add to the fact that Mike Wallace has not played all preseason. This offense looks to be out of sync. They're learning a new offensive scheme under offensive coordinator Todd Haley. And so they're trying out a lot of little nuances, a lot of new wrinkles. They actually have speed out of the backfield now with Chris Rainey, and so they're trying to find ways to utilize it. They look like a different team on offense, and they're going to have to find their way. We don't need to talk about their defense. Their defense is good every single year. You don't have to worry about them. Losing Ryan Clark for this one game is going to hurt. I can't state that enough. You look over across the field at the Denver Broncos, and Peyton Manning makes the Denver Broncos a formidable team in the AFC West, and not only in the AFC West, but in the AFC in general. The Broncos are now a player in the AFC landscape. Peyton Manning does that to your franchise when he comes on board. That's how important of a player he is and how much of an impact he has when he is healthy. If they get the Peyton Manning that the Colts had for the last 15, 16 seasons, then the Broncos will be in business in the 2012 season. I look for these Broncos to come out, be effective in the short to intermediate passing game against this Pittsburgh Steelers defense, and when they catch them napping, make them pay over the top with the absence of Ryan Clark. This running attack is not going to be what it was a year ago. We know that. There's no Tebow. Don't expect Willis McGahee to repeat what he's done or did last year. Because there is no Tebow, there's no one else to have to focus on. They're going to run the ball just enough to keep the defense honest and allow Peyton Manning to do what it is that he does. That defense in Denver has been solid. They're not great. They do nothing special. They do just enough to keep the team in the ballgame. They no longer have to do that. Now they can just play smart football and take chances when they are there to be taken to make plays, because Peyton Manning is going to put points up on the scoreboard. He's going to allow that defense to be more aggressive. That means Von Miller and Elvis Dumersville can start to get pressure on the quarterback and wreak havoc and allow the secondary to make plays. And so I look for the Denver Broncos to start the Peyton Manning era on a high note with a great game against these Steelers in Mile High on Sunday night. It doesn't get too much better than that. 23-17. And so the Broncos will start the Peyton Manning era at 1-0, and the Pittsburgh Steelers will start 0-1. No worries. The Steelers will find their way, as they always do, to the top of the pack in the AFC, find their way to the top of the Rebel in the AFC North, and find their way to the postseason come January. However, I will throw in this one caveat. The Steelers have the trend of missing the postseason every 4 seasons. All right. If you're keeping count, they missed it in 04, they missed it in 08, and this is 2012. This is the 4th year. If the trend continues, this will be the year they miss the postseason. I'm not one to buy into, all these kinds of wacky trends and any kind of superstition, but you can't buck the system or fate, as the Madden curse has shown. Let's hope Calvin Johnson can break that this year. But the Steelers are a team that knows how to get it done. I love Mike Tomlin as a head coach. I look for them to have a successful season this year and find the postseason again. But it won't begin this week, as they will fall to the Denver Broncos in Mile High, 17-23. And that will do it for the Sunday slate of games. There are 2 more games on the slate. On Monday, the Cincinnati Bengals take on the Baltimore Ravens at 7 p.m. Remember, the first week of the season features a doubleheader on Mondays. So that game will start early at 7, followed by the normal San Diego Chargers, Oakland Raiders tilt at 10:15. And so you have 2 games on Monday, doubleheader. And I'll go over those games on the Monday edition of In the Lab Room. And I'll save that for Monday. And look, I've given you all of my picks for this weekend, and I feel confident about each and every single one of them. And I expect each and every single one of them to be a winner. And you know why I expect them to be a winner? Because I'm a winner. That's what I do. I win. And so, look, I told you that I'm going to rectify this week. I started out with an L, and it left a bad taste in my mouth. It tastes disgusting. I don't like the way that feels. However, I'm going to turn that negative into a positive by having a heck of a Sunday and take that momentum and steamroll through Monday. And I look to have a solid, if not outstanding weekend and come back and get this season off to a good start. And so with that being said, that's going to be a touchdown. And so I want to tack on this quick extra point. This weekend marks the first week of the NFL season, and the NFL has made no headway with the officials. And they met with them, and I thought this was another one of these NFL ploys to drag out something that could have been resolved early on and to make something happen in the 13th hour and, get it done. I was wrong. They met and they walked away from the meeting feeling like they felt for the duration of the summer, which was we're not seeing eye to eye. We're just as far apart now as we were 2 months ago. And so I don't know when this thing will get resolved, but these referees are someone that you have to keep a close eye on. It's easy to forget they're in the game until they open up their mouth or they go to make a call. And then you realize, dang, these replacement officials are calling the game again. And so everyone's watching them closely. They're going to be scrutinized. I thought that the replacement officials did a wonderful job on Thursday. Yeah, they made a couple of bad calls or maybe missed a few calls. But for the most part, I thought they were consistent. They made good calls. They were decisive in the calls that they made. And yeah, the referee didn't, use the right signals all the time. And he didn't give us the right verbiage that we like or that we're accustomed to every single time. But that's, again, being nitpicky. And so if we can just get the kind of production out of the rest of these referees and the rest of these crews that we got on Thursday, I think most NFL fans will be fine with that. Don't be the headline. Just be a part of the game. And that's what you're looking for from these replacement officials. It's crazy because I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place with these replacement officials. On one hand, I want them to be so egregious that the league has no other recourse but to get those real officials back onto the football field. But at the same time, I just want to see good quality NFL football unimpeded by bad officiating. And so in order for that to happen, these officials have to be adequate. They have to be good at their job. And so I'm torn. On one hand, I want the real officials back, but on the other hand, I don't want to sacrifice good football to see these officials do bad at their expense just so I can get the real referees back, especially if it costs my team a football game. And so I'm just looking for these referees to continue to be solid, I guess. I much rather just have these referees be solid as replacement officials than to stink it up and cost teams games and really do irreparable damage to this season, because as we all know, one game can be the difference between you making the playoffs and you watching it from the seat of your living room come January. So look, just have consistency out of these referees, and that's what we'll be looking for. And if you're a fan, that's exactly what you're counting on. And let's hope that the NFL reaches an agreement with the real officials without these replacement officials having to force their hand to do so because they've been so bad throughout the course of the season. And with that being said, That's going to be your last episode for the week of In the Lab Room. I thank you for joining me. I look forward to this NFL action over the weekend, as you should. I'm excited, as you can tell. And I can't wait to recap these games, go over them one by one, tell you what I saw, and see how I did record-wise and how the Lab Room is looking to start the season. And looking forward to going over the final two games of week 1 on Monday with you and seeing how those turn out. So enjoy the weekend. Enjoy all the festivities. Again, I caution you, enjoy this. Relish in it. Because before you know it, it will be week 9 and then it'll be week 17. And you're going to ask yourself, what happened to my football season? It is gone. And soon I'll be without football on Sundays and I'll have nothing to do. So enjoy it. Bask in it. It's football. It's back. And it's for real. It counts now. Enjoy the weekend. I'll be back Monday. Same time. Same place. I'll see you Monday. Enjoy the games. I'll be back.